Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We are just allowing for 2 to 3 more minutes for delegates to log in, and then we will get started.
Right, I think we'll get started then. So, good morning, everybody. My name is George Karageorgiades, and I'm one of the founding members of PaySpace, and I'd like to introduce the session today, if I may. So I'd like to welcome all of the attendees who are made up of colleagues, customers, partners, and associates. I'd like to welcome all of you guys to our webinar that will encompass the various statutory relief options within the context of payroll and HR, as well as the PaySpace software. So guys, I think since the pandemic struck and the lockdown began, the various relief measures that impact labor, payroll, and HR have largely been a legislative work in progress, which is understandable to a degree because the measures need to be put in place literally overnight. What we've seen are that, with various sources of information in the media, there's been conflicting views. There are various draft gazettes being formulated and updated almost on a weekly basis. We're also in a position where we literally need to implement functionality before these bills are promulgated, which is unconventional but understandable. And we've also witnessed the evolution of the application process to the TERS, which literally changes 2 to 3 times per week. So with all this happening, we would like to assure you that we are in collaboration all day with our advisor networks and the PAG in order to clear up as much ambiguity and to offer the clearest way forward for all of our customers who desperately need assistance with these measures. Please also understand, though, that this is a moving target, as changes take place very, very often. So our additional commitment during this time is to always keep you guys informed as well as compliant. So we've sent out various newsletters providing guidance, which will continue to happen very often as and when the changes take place. Our developers are deploying the necessary functionality by the minute to actually facilitate the correct calculations and application process. So we would also like to assure all of you that we're here to assist you guys throughout this process, and we mobilize to attend to these options as quickly and as accurately as possible. So what is today about, guys? It's literally about offering a platform to share information and to provide some light from a practical and PaySpace facilitated perspective when it comes to these reliefs. Okay. So we've chosen this platform due to the actual sheer volume of interest in response, and we will not be able to field questions verbally, unfortunately. So you're all muted automatically, as I'm sure you've been made aware. But I would like to please invite you guys to ask as many questions as possible by clicking on the Q&A icon in the top right throughout the session. That icon is right next to the heartbeat icon. So post as many questions as you'd like throughout the session, and we will have an opportunity to address a few of these at the end of the session, and we'll also send out replies to the rest after we actually conclude. So from a panel perspective, we've got a few speakers who will actually be handling some of the relief options. They include Corne Valman, who's the head of our compliance area, Crystal Logan, who's one of our most senior compliance resources, Michelle Ribeiro, who's the head of our support area, and Chantal Butner, who heads up our learning and development area. From a agenda perspective, the team are going to run through the various relief options. They'll kick off with the whole ETI changes that are taking place, and they'll illustrate that these changes are actually an extension of what was in place from an ETI policy perspective, but you'll see how, some of the qualifying criteria has been relaxed, and, the calculations have changed just for this 4-month period, but Crystal will take you guys through that. Then we'll move on to the actual TERS, the TERS fund, which is the temporary employer relief scheme. And we'll look at, what are the criteria there in terms of who can apply, in what situations you can apply, and what the actual application process entails, not only from a practical legislative perspective, but also from a PaySpace perspective. Okay. We'll then touch on some of the existing UIF benefit options that can be utilized as well during this time, which I think is important. And then we'll end off just by breezing over 2 of the other relief options, which is made up of the Solidarity Fund as well as the Deferred PAYE. And we'll only literally touch on the areas that influence payroll when it comes to those 2 as well. So right throughout the process, you guys will see that, we'll talk around the concepts, and then we'll also guide you as to how PaySpace can facilitate the process as well. So I'm going to be handing over to Crystal now, but I'd like you guys to please enjoy the session. Again, please ask as many questions as possible, and just know that you're not alone in this process. We're actually here to assist in any way we can. So please, Crystal, you can go ahead.
Thank you, George. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be taking you through the changes announced in the bills with regards to the ETI changes. There are new bills in place to provide relief to employers during the COVID pandemic. The bills mentioned are currently in draft and have not been promulgated yet and still need to go through the legislative process. As the effective date is April, we have been advised by the PAG that we need to roll out the changes as they stand right now in the bill. Currently, in the ETI calculation, employers could claim ETI if they qualify. The incentive is only valid for 24 months and must be consecutive. If an employer has not, if an employee has not worked for a full month, the income would need to be grossed up. But we will go through this in detail in the later slides. Next. The changes that will take place on the existing calculation for the period of 4 months. Firstly, the employer has to have been registered with SARS before the 1st of March 2020 in order to qualify for these new measures. A qualifying employee now includes employees aged 30 to 65 years old on the last of the calendar month in respect of which the employment tax incentive is claimed. All the pre-existing employee qualifying criteria must still be met. In other words, the employee still needs to have a valid ID, or a valid asylum seeker or refugee ID, and still employed with the employer on or after the 1st of October 2013. The ETI calculation will change for employees currently in their first and second year, and it will introduce a third layer for employees who have exceeded 24 months and who are aged 30 to 65 years old. These newly qualified employees' income must be grossed up if they don't work a full month, but the ETI calculated result must not be grossed down. This will bring an inconsistency in the calculation for employees who are currently in their first and second year. So this concern has been raised with Treasury. Next. As we can see, these are the current rules to qualify based on the old calculation. Once an employer has qualified, the employee would need to qualify based on the certain criteria that we've listed. Also in the previous slide, for example, you still need to be employed on or after the 1st of October 2013, have a valid South African ID, your remuneration must still be less than 6,500. The payroll will then apply the calculation based on the ETI, whether the person is in the first or the second year of employment. The items highlighted in red are the changes that are proposed in the bill. Next. Okay. These are our new calculations that have been proposed in the bill. You will note that based on the employee criteria, the first two income brackets have added the extra 500. The fixed percentages and the variables in the formula have changed in the last bracket. The message out in the media was that all qualifying employees would get an extra 500. But as you can see, based on the formula calculation in the last bracket, the ETI value is not a straight 500, it would taper down.
The benefit of being on PaySpace is that you do not have to worry about any of these calculations because we will be building these calculations in on the system during the course of next week. Go, Crystal.
Next slide. Okay, so let's go through some practical examples to solidify the understanding and how these changes impact the calculation. Employee A, age 21, is in their 6th qualifying period of ETI, has worked for a full month, all qualifying criteria is met, and the monthly income is 4,000. Based on the fact that the employee is still in their first year of the ETI period, the employee calculated ETI before April would have been 1,000, but now from April to the end of July for the period would be 1,500 respectively per month. Employee B, age 28, is in their 25th qualifying period of ETI, has worked for a full month, all qualifying criteria has been met, and his monthly income is 3,000. Based on the new rule, this employee would now qualify for the new calculation. The ETI calculated based on the table would then be 500. Employee C is age 46, has not qualified for ETI before, but now qualifies based on the new rules. Has worked a full month and the monthly income is 6,300. Based on the 6,300, we will now do the lookup on the new calculation table, and his ETI would be calculated at 50 based on the formula. If we look at the total ETI calculated, provided before April, the amount is 1,000. Provided from April is 2,500. Next slide.
In this following examples, we're going to show you what happens to an employee if they worked less than the prescribed 160 hours for ETI. So please take note that in our calculations, we want to get to a monthly equivalent because the ETI tables is monthly tables.
Correct. So these next set of examples, the employees have not worked a full month. So we would need to gross up their income in order to meet the 160 rule. And then gross down in order to get to the prorated amount for the month. Looking at the example, employee D is still in their second year calculation. His ETI calculated result would then be grossed down based on the current rules because he still falls into year 1 and year 2. Whereas if you look at employee E and F, they fall into the new calculation rules based on their criteria, and their result would not be grossed down. Thank you. Please post any questions that you may have in the Q&A, and then we can provide answers at the end of the session.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for explaining the ETI changes to us. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off with the second relief option, the C19 TERS process. And we are first going to refer back to the legislation. The Unemployment Insurance Fund will compensate affected workers from the National Disaster Benefit Fund. And the COVID-19 Temporary Employer Relief Scheme was gazetted on the 26th of March, and amendments have been made on the 8th of April. And amendments have specifically been made to clause 3.1 and clause 3.4, where clause 3.1 refers to employers that qualify for the process. And at this point, I'm going to hand over the discussion to Cornay to give us a nice example.
So on 3.1 in the initial gazette that was published, they did not mention partial shutdown. In this new gazette, they explicitly said that it's if you close your business in full or partial. For example, if I'm a vet and I have a surgery section of my vet and I have a shop section of my vet, my shop section of my vet is not seen as an essential service, and therefore that section is partially closed, but the surgery section still needs to continue. That is where this specific change came in, so that you can partially close certain sections of your business.
Clause 3.4 refers to the maximum salary that will be considered when the benefit is calculated. And in a moment, we are going to have a look at the maximum salary. Let's first have a look at which employers will qualify to apply for this process. Companies that closes their operations or part of their operations due to the COVID-19 for a period of 3 months or less and suffers a loss of income. And that is specifically clause 3.1 that has changed for part of the operations as well. It is important to note that the company must be registered with UIF and make monthly contributions as stipulated in the Contributions Act of 2002. When we look at the process in more detail just now, you will notice that you have to complete your UIF registration number to continue this process. Importantly, you have to comply with the C19 TERS directive. The company's temporary closure must be due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and fully paid employees do not qualify for this benefit. Who, what, and where? Who applies for the benefit? The employer or bargaining council applies for the benefit, and the payment towards the employees will also be discussed when we look at the COVID-19 file. Should the bargaining council pay the employees or the employer pay the employees? What amount can be claimed? The salary to be considered in calculating the benefit is capped to an amount of 17,712 Rand per employee, and there is a sliding scale of 38 to 60% as per the UI Act that will be used to determine the amount that needs to be paid to the employee. And this was specifically mentioned in clause 3.4 of the Gazette that was issued on the 8th of April. I'm going to hand over to Corneille to give us an example of questions that we are receiving from clients regarding the calculation.
Thank you, Chantal. So we've received questions, for example, of what will I get from the UIF benefits if I earn an X amount of money? The answer is simple. We don't know. What we do know, and what is clear in the Gazette, is that there's a sliding scale of between 38% and 60%, which will be determined by the UIF during the application process to determine what percentage of that sliding scale each employee will benefit from.
There's also a minimum amount that can be claimed. So if the employee's income replacement sliding scale falls below 3,500, the employee will be paid a replacement income equal to that amount. Let's say, for example, your income replacement sliding scale amounts to 2,000, then that replacement income will be paid as 2,000.
Now, this minimum wage that they are talking about, they call it in the file, they call it sector minimum wage. Now, sector minimum wage can either be the normal minimum wage, which is the 3,500, or the minimum wage that you have signed with the bargaining council or in your bargaining council agreement. What we will do from PaySpace's side is we will, in the file, default to the 3,500, but if you have completed the minimum amount in your grading scale, we will pick up that minimum amount that the employee is linked to in this specific field. I just need to mention in the previous section where we talked about the sliding scale, if I can give you a practical example of the calculation, you would take the if you earn 17,712 and above, they will take that 17,000 Rand and they will take the sliding scale of 38%. So if you take that and you multiply it by 38%, the minimum amount that you can, maximum amount that you would be able to get as a benefit is the 6,730 that you would have had connections with in the, or heard about in the media. And that is where that amount is coming from.
Thank you very much. And then where do you submit your application? You have to submit your application on the online portal. We'll have a look at that process now. And that application has changed, the process has changed since yesterday. And Corneille, I'm just going to ask you to give us a bit of history there.
Okay, so what happened, I think these past few weeks has been not been an easy time for everybody in the payroll world. And I think what happened with UIF is in haste, they started this process because they understood that they will not be able to accommodate every single employee that they have to claim. And therefore they asked the employers to intervene, and the employer is now the mediator of paying this money. This being said, is that this file and application process has changed about 5 to 7 times. Yesterday, we received we received information from PHESA that they have now taken away the email application process and that they are now promoting that employers apply on the online portal. We will show you the online portal and the application process. It's a lot easier. And what you also need to know is that the CSV file with the employee data that is required, we will release during the course of next week.
Let's just first have a look at the outline of the submission process. You have to register on the portal, you have to complete your employer information, and then you submit the employee details. Now, when you access the portal, you have to register either as an employer or a bargaining council. Once you've registered, the portal is going to kick you out and you have to log back in. And at that time of logging back in, you have to complete the entity details. You also have to select the lockdown dates, where you have two options, either the 27th of March or the 17th of April. After you have registered, you have to then accept the Memorandum of Agreement, and this is clause 8 of the Gazette that was issued on the 8th of April. For written or electronic confirmation of acceptance of the Memorandum of Agreement, you are also accepting the terms and conditions of this scheme. There are 4 different Memorandums of Agreements. Now, if you register as an employer, automatically Memorandum of Agreement A will pop up and you accept Memorandum of Agreement A. If you are a bargaining council, B, C, or D will become available. B will become available if the funds will be paid to the bargaining council and the bargaining council pays the employees. Memorandum of Agreement C will be available when you apply as a bargaining council, but the UIF pays the employees directly. And lastly, Memorandum Agreement D is if you are a bargaining council, but the fund should pay to the employer, and then the employer will pay the employee. You then have to accept the letter of undertaking. And very important, if you are an employer and the fund should pay into your account and then you will pay the employees, you will have to attach proof of your bank account details. And the best proof or advice that we can give here is a certified copy of your latest bank statement. Once you've completed all of this detail, you will be required to attach employee information in the form of the COVID-19 UIF application file, and Kurna is going to assist us in the particulars of this file.
All right, so you'll see that it's the format, it's in a CSV format, and we will export this file in the CSV format as prescribed. Next slide. So the first 7 fields is basically employer information. So your first field is your UIF reference number. This is the employer registration number with the UIF fund. Then it's shut down from and shut down till. Now you'll see, you could see from the online portal, your shutdown from, you only have 2 dates to select from, which is the 27th of March or the 17th of April, which was the 2 shutdown periods that was announced. Your shutdown, let's say, for example, you've applied earlier, so you've applied for the 27th of March till the 16th of April. You can still apply for the 17th of March till end of April, just as the important thing is your dates should not overlap. That's what they said. The shutdown till is no later than the 30th of April, or if otherwise announced by the President. Your trade name is the trading name of the employer. Pay-as-you-earn number is the pay-as-you-earn number of the employer. The contact number and email address is the contact number and email address of the employer. From this section onwards, the employee data starts. So it's the employee ID number, first name, and last name. Next slide, please. The monthly remuneration was under discussion with the PAG and the UIF department, and we've got clarity on what should be populated in this field. So this would be the actual remuneration for the payroll month prior to the payroll month in which the TERS benefit is claimed. So if I can give you an example, the last amount that you could claim was the amount of end of March that you would have paid on the 7th of April. And this amount must be the same as that reported against IRP5 code 8300, which is gross taxable remuneration. What we have done in the file itself is we are pre-populating this on your behalf. So when you select the file, we will populate this amount. Then it's the employee start and employee end date. We have had some questions on the employee end date. Now, the employee start date is your original employee date of engagement. Your employment end date is if you are terminated in the TERS process. This is not the shutdown date. This is the actual termination date. So if an employee is in actual fact terminated, then this date should populate if it's during the TERS application process. The sector minimum wage. Now, in discussion with the UIF, it appears that this field is no longer required, but cannot be deleted from the spreadsheet at this stage because the columns that follow this field in the spreadsheet will then not be in the expected sequence according to their software. But from a PaySpace side, we would rather populate this field. So we're going to populate the normal minimum wage of 3,500 if your job grade minimum amount has not been completed. If your job grade minimum amount has been completed, we will pick up that minimum wage amount in this specific section. Remuneration received during the shutdown. Now, in the previous files, it said leave income, which was a bit confusing, and they've cleared this up now by saying remuneration received during shutdown period. So this, you have to declare the remuneration that you've paid the employee during the shutdown period. Let me give you a practical example. This employee earns 5,000 Rand. UIF will decide and say, for example, right, you will earn 3,500 Rand, and the employer will then show that I'm going to pay you 2,000 Rand. Then your benefit from UIF will be 1,500. And that would be what would be paid out. Therefore, they're promoting partially payment in the media, as you would have heard, and therefore this field has been made available where you can declare any income that you've received during this COVID TERS lockdown. What is important to know is that in PaySpace, we will make a period available where you select period from and to which income you want to select, and then your components will be listed, and you can flag the components that you want to report on in this specific section. Next slide. The next slide or the next section of the file is your banking details. Now you'll see at the last column it says paid by employee, paid by employer, or paid to bargaining council. If you select from our system paid by employee, it will populate the employee banking details per field. If you select paid by employer or paid to bargaining council, we will open up fields to where you complete your banking details of this respective employee and bargaining council, and you can complete these details there, and then these details will be captured on the actual file per line. This file will be released during the course of next week.
Sorry, Corne, if I can just add something to that previous slide.
Sure.
So I think one of the challenges here is that the department has allowed for a mixed bag of data when it comes to the payment medium, which means that if you've got a file filled with 100 employees, you could literally choose that the first 10 you'd want to pay directly, and the next 10 you could pay, the employer could pay, and so on and so on. So that is obviously something that's under discussion with the PAG. And what we have basically advised on this is that, you know, if you're going that route in any way, there's also this, you're opening yourself up to quite a governance nightmare. So from a record keeping perspective, an audit perspective, it's advisable to obviously let the employer administer these payments as much as to the degree that is possible. Okay. And yeah, so I think there's a huge sort of governance debate at the moment around why this is opened up within the file. But we'll provide clarity as soon as the PAG actually gives us feedback on that.
Yes, thank you, George.
All right, before you export the file from PaySpace, you first have to complete the employee suspension screen. You have to indicate the suspension reason, reduced working time, which will activate code 17 and suppress the payment of the employee. Now, the support team has made a template available to do this in bulk for lots of employees, and you're welcome to contact them if you need this template. Previously, we've been asked for proof of payroll by the Department of Labour. Currently, they are not requiring proof of payroll. Should they in future require the proof of payroll, we recommend that you print the variance component report for a selected period and export the report to Excel. Let's have a look at the third relief option for discussion this morning, which is the UIF existing benefits. Now remember, the COVID-19 TERS process is a process where the employer applies. The UIF existing benefits is the process where the employee will apply, and the employee will apply for relief due to illness, reduced working time, permanent retrenchment, or in the unfortunate event of death. We do need some clarity still on certain topics, but application forms can be downloaded from the Department of Labour's website. Let's take a closer look at illness. So an example typically here would be if an employee should be quarantined for 14 days to establish whether the employee has COVID-19 or not. If the quarantine continues for more than 14 days, a medical certificate must be included in the application date. For the initial 14 days, we require a confirmation from both the employee and from the employer. And then you also have to attach documents such as a copy of your ID, the UI19, 2.1, 2.7, and 2.8. The UI19 is available on PaySpace as well as the UI 2.7, but please note with the 2.7 we are making a few changes that will be available in the course of next week.
The changes on this report is just format changes, as during this process of COVID, they've changed the formats of their forms.
The benefit is open from the 26th of March and will remain open for a 3-month period unless the minister withdraws it earlier. Your preparation on PaySpace would be again to complete the employee suspension screen to suppress the payment, but your employee suspension reason will be illness, which will activate code 10. For reduced working time, you would have to submit the same documents that we've mentioned in the previous slide. Again, your preparation on PaySpace would be to complete the employee suspension screen, select the reduced working time, code 17, and suppress the payment of the employee. I'm going to hand over the discussion for the last two relief options to Cornay, the Solidarity Fund, as well as the PAYE deferral.
We've received, on the Solidarity Fund, we've received a few questions to ask if an employee opts to contribute to the Solidarity Fund, what should happen to this money on the payroll. Now, according to Section 18A, this is seen as a bona fide donation. And the Solidarity Fund has become a public benefit organisation in terms of Section 18A 1B, 1A, my apologies. Now, this donation will be captured on the payroll or on PaySpace, and you will use the existing donation code of 4030. You can just rename it to Donation COVID-19 or COVID-19 Solidarity Fund donation, and the system will calculate the tax deductibility of this donation itself. Next slide. Pay-as-you-earn deferral. So what does this mean? An employer whose turnover is less than 50 million rand are allowed to defer 20% of their pay-as-you-earn bill from the 1st of April till the end of July. Now, the maximum payback term leeway is 6 equal installments from the 20th of August 2020 till January 21, where you need to pay back this deferred money. SARS has confirmed with us and the PAGSA that there is no changes on the EMP 201. What does this mean? This means that you have to declare 100% of your pay-as-you-earn on the EMP 201, but you only pay 80% of the actual bill. And the deferral, the benefit of this is that this deferral payment will not result in interests or penalties.
All right.
What I just want to clarify as well is the difference between the actual TERS process and the UIF benefits. The TERS process is when your business is the benefit you can claim if your business is under lockdown during the TERS period. Your normal UIF benefits is just your normal UIF benefits that you would have claimed even if the TERS process was not there. But you have the option to choose this as an employer.
Thank you very much, Cornay. We are going to start the Q&A section, and we are first going to have a look at some of the existing questions that have been coming through on support, and Michelle is going to share her knowledge and expertise on those questions. And then we are going to have a look at the questions that you've been posting, and we are going to rotate between Crystal, Cornay, and George to answer those questions. So Michelle, over to you, and thank you for discussing the questions.
Thank you for the introduction, Chantal. So during the last 2 months, we received a variety of questions surrounding the implication and the practical application of COVID relief options. And I've compiled a few questions which we received into the support space, which I think would add value and perhaps already answer a few questions which you may have. So let's get started. So question 1. Can the TERS CSV file be submitted on a weekly basis by a client to claim for the week past, or only once upfront when the approval for the process is obtained from SARS? So yes, you first need to get the approval from the Department of Labour. Following the approval, you can then submit the file on the online platform, of which you will have 2 available options to select from. And these 2 options are in line with the lockdown periods, namely from the 27th of March to the 16th of April, and the second option being from the 17th of April to the 30th of April. Second scenario, staff have been forced to use their annual leave during shutdown. Some staff will not have sufficient annual leave and therefore will receive no pay. So questions that came out of this, you can consider 2 options: to follow the TERS process, or option 2, consider the normal UIF claiming benefit. So if we look at the TERS option, are we permitted to claim TERS benefits for staff with insufficient annual leave? So yes, you are able to claim for these staff only. Are we permitted to claim for the staff with sufficient annual leave to utilize this and therefore receive full pay until the lockdown ends? Is this permitted, or do all staff need to receive 0 pay in order to apply for TERS? So in essence, yes, the claims process allows for partially paid employees. And during the claims process, the Department of Labour will receive the information on the submitted file and will pay out the difference between what is paid and what has been received up to the limit. If we look at option 2, going the normal UIF benefit route, is this a viable option? And the answer to this is no. Due to the shutdown, the TERS process must be followed. Can a sole proprietor claim under this option? Yes, a sole proprietor is able to claim provided they are in distress due to COVID-19. What is the sector minimum monthly wage? For a normal employee, the monthly minimum wage is 3,500 Rand per month. However, if bargaining councils are in place, the specific sector minimum wage will be as per the signed agreement which is in place. When the business closed down on the 26th of March for the lockdown period, is the employment end date required by the TERS spreadsheet? In this scenario, the employee did not resign. So on the TERS file, you will report on the employee's original date of engagement, and if the employee has not resigned, the employment end date field will be blank. So the employment end date is only applicable when the employee is actually terminated. So how do we process this on the system? If an employee is terminated on the system, let me just correct myself. If the employee is not terminated on the system, the file will generate a blank field. However, if the employee is terminated on the system via the tax profile screen, the file will populate the termination date accordingly. So how do we claim calculated values should the employee receive remuneration during this period? In a scenario when an employee normally receives 15,000 Rand per month, but now only receives 5,000 Rand per month. So this calculation will be determined by the Department of Labour based on the sliding scales mentioned earlier in the presentation, so ranging from 38% to 60%. So based on this, if you earn on or above the 17,712 Rand cap, then you would be given a maximum amount of 6,730 Rand. So how do we derive at this figure? If we take the cap of 17,712 and times by the 38%, which is the lowest scale range, we get to the 6,730 amount. So a very common query that we received in the space is, can an advance be made to the employee until UIF pays out? And the answer to this is yes. The employer may advance funds to an employee, and this would be considered a loan agreement between the employer and the employee. Moving to the second last question. We need to create a TERS benefit component under income. Should the normal statutory requirements be deducted, and under which RP5 codes should this be indicated? In this scenario, we suggest creating a new non-taxable allowance component labeled TERS benefits, and this just will assist for easy reporting and from audit control perspective, and allocate the tax code 999 or 000. And the reason being is that this payment, in accordance with the 7th schedule of the Income Tax Act, is not seen as a direct payment to the employee. So in other words, the employee would have received this benefit from the Department of Labour under ordinary circumstances. And then coming to the last question, can you claim for normal UIF benefits and the TERS benefits? And the answer is simply no, you cannot. Seeing as TERS is a benefit specifically for temporary layoffs and also being a separate benefit scheme, an employer who implemented temporary layoffs cannot make a claim in terms of terms and normal UIF. So that brings us to the end of frequently asked questions. However, I just wanted to make mention of 2 points. Once the TERS CSV file is available on the system and you are unsure on how to process the information on the system or how to generate the file, I do encourage you to please reach out to support. We have a dedicated team which are more than happy to assist you. And secondly, I know it has been mentioned in the presentation earlier, but I thought it would be worth reiterating that if you need the facility to do mass suspensions on the system, to please contact support, and we will then provide you with a template which you would complete and forward to us, and we will guide you through the process. So from my side, thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope these questions and answers have added some value and provided clarity in uncertain times. So
Thank you,
Chantal,
Michelle.
back to you.
Sorry, Chantal. So we will be answering all the questions now from that you have posted. I will rotate between my two colleagues. So let's read out the questions. I'm going to start from the first question and just move down and allocate people to answer the questions as we go along. Chantal?
Yes,
Did you want to say anything?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Not at all.
So I'm going to read the first question, guys. The question 1 is, my one client pays some of their staff on an hourly basis. What remuneration do I add to the schedule sent to TERS? Now, if you look at what they qualify as remuneration, and after the discussion with the UIF fund, they say the actual remuneration for the payroll month prior to the payroll month in which the TERS benefit is claimed. So if I would, therefore, we suggest that you use your last month's wage. So if I'm an hourly paid employee, I've been paid hourly for March, I would use the total for March. And this is what we will be picking up in the file as well. Second question is, if there are staff who have contributed UIF but are not SA citizens, may they be included in the UIF TERS fund? This we will get from the field ID number and an identity document. There's 6 identity documents. If they have these documents, yes, you can claim for them. So the first one is your 13-digit barcoded RSA ID, your 13-digit barcoded RSA passport, your valid foreign identity documents, your valid foreign passports, your RSA refugee identity documents, and your RSA asylum seeker permits. If this employee does not have any one of these documents, then the answer is no, you will not be able to claim for them. What proof of payroll has to be sent to the UIF for the TERS fund application? Now, in the previous auto replies, they did ask for proof of payroll. But in the recent ones and on the online submission, if you can remember, we said that they prefer you to submit online. They did not request this payroll information. If during the payroll the application process, they come back and say, please send us proof of payroll, what we suggest is you use your component consolidated variance report and just populate the information for the last 3 months, which will be your remuneration. And this remuneration is your 4th schedule remuneration or your gross taxable remuneration. So if I can guide you on that, if you make the selections on the report, just select the note component with the tax code TAXA, TAXA, and that will be sufficient. Second question is ETI. ETI current old legislation. Can you claim for an employee who work for you for the 1st and 2nd year? I understood it previously that it is per person per ID number only 2 years, or is it 2 years per employment at your company without any influence of where he or she worked before, and if a previous employer have claimed on that employee ID number before? Crystal or Michelle, can you answer this one for us?
Michelle, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, yeah. Your ETI 24 qualifying periods relate specifically to your employment with that employer. So it's regardless of who may or may not have claimed prior. What is important to note, however, that if the employer claimed ETI for that employee and was a associated company, so a company within the group, then that ETI for that period will still continue from the original group join date and not the employment date with the new employer. So to the extent it's a separate unassociated company, it will not matter, you can still claim. And to the extent it is an associated company within the group of companies, then that'll count towards the 24-month period.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Next question. Good day. We pay all our wage employees per fortnight. Thus, they would not have completed a month and payroll is set up per fortnight. Would PaySpace apply the same automatically for the fortnight employees? So upon selection of the CSV file, you can choose the period you want to pay for. So I would suggest choose the date when your first fortnight started in March, and then your end date would be when your fortnight ended, and the system will automatically pick up monthly income. Next question. Hi everyone. How does this affect temp employees? I'm not quite sure if this is now temp employees with ETI or temp employees with COVID. So let's answer both. So temp employees for ETI, Crystal?
All employees qualify, but you still need to go according to the rules. So if that temp employee is aged 18, well, based on the old rules, based 18 to 29, or now is 30 to 65, earns less than 6,500, has a valid ID, employed with you on the 1st of October 2013, if they qualify according to those rules, ETI will calculate.
So to answer the TERS section of this, if this employee has a valid ID number, you can claim for them if they are still going to work for you during the TERS shutdown. Great ETI question for Michelle or Crystal. Regarding the ETI changes and 500 Rand subsidy that employees earning 6,500 Rand will earn for the next 4 months. How do we load this on payroll? Has a tax code been created for this? Also, this is calculated on a sliding scale, correct? So not everyone earning 6,500 or less will get 500 Rand exactly. Crystal,
Okay,
go.
I can answer that. Correct, it is for the next 4 months. The calculation is already built into the system. You do not have to calculate anything on your side. The calculation will happen on the current ETI component. Correct, it is a sliding scale, so depending if the person's earnings falls between the bracket, you would then use the formula. So based on that formula, you won't necessarily get the full 500. That 500 would be tapered down, depending on the employee's income.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next question. Does this mean we cannot finalize payroll until PaySpace has confirmed? So there's 2 areas here. There's 1, the ETI changes, and 2, the CSV file. So the ETI changes will be released during the course of next week. Now remember, this is a note component, and this note component is what is captured on your EMP 201. So I would suggest you can close and finalize payroll, just don't close the payroll. Or if you want to close the payroll, you will have to create an interim run to activate the ETI recalculation when it is released. For COVID TERS, you can close the payroll because the file can be extracted regardless if the payroll is open or closed. Crystal, do you want to add anything to that for the ETI?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, great.
So there won't be any effect in terms of the employee's financial data. It's
Yes.
a note component. It's an employer amount that would then be updated on your EMP 201 at the end of the day.
Okay, great. Next question is, can you apply if our sales employees lost commission due to COVID? Yes, you can, because the definition says that if you suffered any loss of income due to this COVID disaster, you can claim. So I would then populate March's commission so that they can base that commission on March. Base the application on March.
And that's provided that the business is shut down.
That's provided if the business is shut down due to COVID. Okay. We saw with the online submission platform that there are 2 periods of claims. Yes, 27 to 16 and then 17 April to 30 April. How is the monthly salary indicated in the TERS spreadsheet? Is it worked out for the above days only, or the actual monthly salary placed therein? Then the company has paid the employees in advance, end of March, out of loans. Can the UIF be claimed back to cover the costs? Or should no advanced payments be made, or should a person wait for the UIF funds? Okay. George, do you want to go?
No, hit it,
Okay. Fine. So yes, there are 2 dates that you can select from. But like I said, when they defined remuneration, when PAGSA discussed this with the UIF fund, they said the actual remuneration for the payroll prior to the payroll month in which the TERS benefit is claimed. So even if you select 27th of March till April and 17th of April till 30th of March, we will use your end of March income, as this was the last payroll month prior to the payroll month in which TERS benefit is claimed. Second part of your question was if you pay out loans, so you give the employee their salary because you're still waiting for the UIF to pay back this money. That is fine, you can still do that. So you will pay them their money as a loan, and then when you receive the income from UIF, you will just receive the income back from UIF.
I think what's important to indicate is that you're not actually declaring that loan, based on the
Yes.
selection of components when
Yeah.
you create the CSV file.
Yeah, because you're giving the employee the money in advance.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. We have guaranteed 50% pay for employees, even though our company is closed. Most of these employees will qualify for ETI with remuneration at 50%. The UIF suspension code 17, which is reduced working hours, is what is prorating the employee's pay. Will this remuneration be grossed up to calculate ETI, or will ETI be calculated on the actual amount paid out to employee?
Okay, I can take that one. Will the remuneration be grossed up to calculate? Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah.
But it depends if the employee and depending on what ETI period count the employee is currently in order to determine whether the amount would be grossed down. So if the employee is still in the current year 1 and year 2, the income would be grossed up and the ETI value would be grossed down. If the employee falls into the new category with the new calculation rules, the income will be grossed up, but the ETI amount will not be grossed down. Okay.
Okay, great. Next question. If our TERS application has been emailed to their dedicated email address on 15 April, is this still valid and will they consider the application? To answer this question, I have to say I am not sure. But if you want to make sure, you can phone their number, the COVID TERS number. Now, I have received success by phoning this number, so I would suggest phone the number. I'll give it to you in a short while. Phone this number and find out from the UIF department itself, because we cannot speculate on this specific situation. So the number that you can phone is 012 337 1997. Going to repeat that for you. 012 337 1997. You'll find that helpline very, very helpful. Okay. Do you have to apply through the bargaining council? You apply through the online portal. So you will have to contact your bargaining council to find out whether or not you can apply on their behalf or whether or not they will apply. So I would say that is an agreement between you and the bargaining council. Okay, sorry, let me just get to the next question. There is a perception that the claim for the first period up to 16 April will close at the same time. Is this true? Until when will we be able to claim and when will the payments be made? Right, so in none of the gazettes or in any of the correspondence we have read through, was there a deadline date for applications? But I would claim within this shutdown period. So you will have till I would claim up to end of April, or until the shutdown has been extended. When will the COVID-19 CSV file be made available on PaySpace? As I check now, yes, it's not available as yet, Chris, but we will make it available during the course of next week. It would either be within the beginning of next week. It's currently in testing. If the company is closed, the entire lockdown period, 27 March till 30 April, which period do I choose on the online portal? I would choose 27th of March, because remember, you can choose your start date and you can choose your end date. So I would choose 27th of March because that's when you actually started. And when you have to select your end date, you select 30th of April, because that will populate in your and then you will populate that in your file when you select the file from PaySpace, and then your dates will be 27th of March till 30th of April. Do you still have to open a separate bank account as employer for the UIF to pay the benefit? Now, we have not received any correspondence if this is a fact. What we have read is that the bargaining council should open a separate account, but from what we've read is the employer does not need to. I know that there are some accountants that suggest this, but I think this is just to make the reconciliation and the audit process a much easier. But this is your prerogative. Do you have to make 2 submissions to TERS? One for period 27 and 6? No, you can make one. Sorry, I need to finish the question. One for the period of 27th of March, 16th April, and then again for 17th March till 30th of April. No, you can make one submission. So you select your start date, 27th of March, and then when you select your end date, you select end of April. Can retrenchments be made, or do you have to use TERS as an option? The TERS hotline said that TERS must be employed first before implementing retrenchments. Well, I think it's up to the company, to be honest. I think it's you have to analyze as a company if you can afford to retrench employees, or if you want to follow the TERS process. I know that in the media, the government encourages people to rather keep your employees employed because we don't want to increase the people not having income and jobs. So that would once again be company prerogative. You have to make an analysis as a company to see if you can afford not retrenching people or afford retrenching them. If a company implements short time, should they claim for TERS or should the employees claim regular UIF? That's your choice as a company. So you can make the decision to say, will I apply for the TERS process? And then you will declare the short time in the file and the UIF will pay out the difference between the two.
But based on the shutdown, I think that's the ruling that they should look at. So if the business has shut down, and that's what the reduced hours is attributed to, then TERS would be the route to go.
Yes. When can we expect the UI 2.1 and 2.8? This will be ready by end of the month, Carl. So by the end of the month, we will have those 2 forms ready. If you want us to send it to you in advance without generating it from the system, you can send it to support and they will send you the form so you can populate them if you want. Can an employee apply and the company apply for TERS? Can the employee apply and the company apply for TERS? If I understand this question, you are asking whether or not the employee can apply for the normal benefits
independently. So I don't think that's possible. Not with the online process.
If you can see, you cannot, like the question Michelle raised at the end, is can you claim for UIF benefits and TERS benefits? No, you cannot claim for benefits simultaneously. You have to choose one. If you have already submitted online as the 27th of March, must you go in and load employees again to get paid from the 17th of April to 30th of April? If you select, this will determine of what was your shutdown to date you've selected. So if you selected your shutdown date till the 16th of April, then yes, you will have to apply for this next section of the shutdown, which is the 17th of April to the 30th of April. But in your application process, sorry, George, if you've applied from 27th till 30th of April, then you don't need to.
I just want to clarify something that came up earlier regarding the same sort of sphere of question, right?
Yes.
I think the question was around, can I apply once for the entire duration? Now, the online process doesn't allow you to apply for the entire shutdown duration. You actually need to apply twice, once for the first shutdown period and once for the second shutdown period. So although this was possible before the latest online process, it doesn't look like it's possible now.
So you have, when you select your due date, it doesn't allow you to select 30th of April.
That's correct, yes. So you actually have to say this, basically you're either selecting the first shutdown period or the second shutdown period, the extended shutdown period, which starts today. So that
Okay.
has changed.
Okay. It's like you can see this UIF portal changes daily.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Will UIF give details of what amount needs to be paid to which employee if they pay all claimed funds into the employer's bank account? Kerry, to be honest, I actually don't know. We haven't applied for this process ourselves, so we can't tell you what the UIF or if UIF will give details on this. I would
What is
suggest
interesting, sorry,
Yeah.
what is actually interesting is that there's quite a mixed opinion around the physical payout of the TERS in
Yeah.
terms of you know, there's news in the media saying that over 300 million has been paid out in TERS already. And then there's also areas where people are saying we don't know one person who's received or one company that's received TERS. And we've also heard the commissioner state on radio that, you know, payments are made monthly, and that, you know, the end of March wouldn't have been the first increment of payment for TERS because TERS is applicable from the 1st of April, meaning that the first payment would only happen at the end of April. So that's quite an interesting thing around how often the payment takes place as well. So there's no concrete, you know, we successfully received our money within a month. We would actually like to hear from you guys if you know how the process went, and if anybody has successfully been paid their TERS relief.
So
that would be interesting.
Your input would be highly valued. What I suggest, Kerry, is, like I said, maybe phone them and find out from them itself. That helpline is very useful. I find it very useful and quick and easy to actually get your answers. So I'm going to repeat the number for you. It's 012 337 1997. Okay. Must the loan amount be indicated as remuneration received by employer during the shutdown period on the TERS template? I would say no, because you are just giving them the money in advance. Because the UIF benefits has not been paid out. This is not money that you pay them during the lockdown session. So it's not an agreed money that you say, I agree to pay you X amount and the rest would be paid by UIF. So the loan I would not display as remuneration received, because remember, you will receive the difference of what you've paid them versus what they will pay them. If normal UIF benefits has been claimed, but we have had no response yet from UIF, can we cancel the UIF benefits claim and rather use TERS? If so, how do we cancel the original UIF claims?
I think they would have to take that up with the department.
Yes, definitely. So I would phone the Department of Labour. You can use that number. That number is really very helpful, and just phone them and confirm this with the UIF themselves. I understand that owners/directors cannot claim benefits from the TERS process, even if they were contributing to UIF. Please clarify. If we cannot claim, how would we remove the directors from the TERS file on the payroll generated by the PaySpace? So they don't say directors can't claim. What they do say is they say that the benefit will be calculated on a maximum of 17,712. Therefore, I would apply for directors. I know of a company that has applied for directors and they have not been rejected. So I would apply for the employees, and the prerogative is still on the UIF whether or not they're going to give them the maximum amount of 6,730 based on the sliding scale of 38%. Must public holidays be paid in full for employees who is currently not working due to company partial closure? I would say yes, because remember, public holidays paid does not form part of TERS. It forms part of basic conditions of employment. And the basic conditions of employment is very clear in saying that you have to pay an employee during a public holiday. When is the deadline for TERS? We were informed it's today. You stated that the report will only be available next week. There has been no deadline for TERS in any of the gazettes or any of the official documentations that we've read. So I would say you can still apply during the course of the TERS process. Pay-as-you-earn deferral. Are the 20% calc before or after possible ETI deductions? They say that it's 20% of your pay-as-you-earn bill. This we're going to have to check with the PAG. Crystal, please make a note for me.
It would be the final pay-as-you-earn, but we will confirm.
Yes, I think this one we have to confirm with the PAG for you guys. We will be sending
Final
out
pay-as-you-earn post ETI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what they say?
Yeah.
So it's final pay-as-you-earn post ETI. So that's the answer to that question. It's final pay-as-you-earn post ETI. Please clarify the 80% amount that may be payable to on the EMP 201. Does this only apply to pay-as-you-earn portion, or is it 80% of UIF and STL portion as well? It's only the pay-as-you-earn portion. The PAG is actually still waiting on what is the final verdict on the UIF and STL relief that the President mentioned. There's no clarity on that as of yet. So for now, it's the pay-as-you-earn. If employees earn more than 17,712, are they excluded from the benefit, or is their benefit only capped at 17,712? They will be capped at 17,712 if they earn more than that amount. Do we include the UIF and STL liability in calculating the 20% reduction in payment for the EMP 201, or is this limited to the pay-as-you-earn portion only? So this is the question I've just answered prior. It's limited to the pay-as-you-earn portion only. Okay, and then this is the last two questions. You are welcome to post any more questions if you want. What if you applied for TERS for all employees and declared R0 paid by the employer for this period? An employee then tests positive for COVID or is quarantined and UIF illness benefits apply. Do we get double UIF for the overlap period? I would say no, because remember what we said, you cannot claim for more than one benefit at once. But I suggest for clarity, double check this with the Department of Labour by phoning this number of 012-337-1997. Okay, if an employee is paid cash, whose banking details do you put down?
Well, you would obviously not.
Yeah.
You probably put the employer's banking details. Look, the fact that the UIF is paying the employer will actually negate any complication in paying the employee. So it's just a semantic. So I would actually say the employer, but it's actually a very good question, because will they reject an employee without any information in the banking section? I think it's something we can check and we can get back on.
Okay. That looks like it's all the questions. I think let's wait until 10:30. If there's any additional questions, you are welcome to post them and we will answer them in due course. I see a lot of questions coming through now. Okay, next question. Will PaySpace send a notification when all these changes have been made on the system? Anonymous, we will definitely do that. The moment all these changes is in the system, you will be the first to know.
So I think it's, in terms of the update on the previous newsletter that was sent out, Corne, and delegates as well.
Yes, yes.
I think, we periodically need to update that because of the rapid changes that take place every week. So on the previous version, those are outdated. You will receive a new newsletter during the course of next week.
Next question, very good one. Is TERS subject to pay-as-you-earn? The answer is easy, no. And the reason is the money that is paid by UIF is seen as 7th schedule remuneration, where the UIF is not a connected person to the employee. So if you think about it, if I was on maternity leave or illness, in the UIF, I applied for the benefits and they paid me directly. That money would just be paid into my bank account, not subject to pay-as-you-earn STL or UIF. Can the company claim but if you want to load this on PaySpace, we suggest this for auditing and reconciliation purposes, and you'll load it against RP5 code 9999, which will not calculate pay-as-you-earn UIF or STL. Can the company claim again for May and June if staff has not been paid their full monthly salaries? Liana, to be honest with you, I would phone UIF regarding this situation because we are not sure. The legislation does say only for the shutdown period, but I think the best would be to phone the Department of Labour and double check it with them.
I think there would be amendments to
I agree.
the Act based on an extension to the shutdown period.
Yeah.
So that probably would come out. If they haven't communicated that, then the answer would be no.
Yes. How does leave accrue during lockdown while people are not working? So now we're going back to the basic conditions of employment. Now, according to the basic conditions of employment, you accrue leave if you get paid. So if you pay the employees during lockdown, then they will accrue leave. If you don't pay employees during lockdown, then they will not accrue leave. May we apply only for our cleaning staff as they cannot work during lockdown? All our other staff are working remotely from home. Yes, you can. And this was published in the Gazette of the 8th of April, where they specifically said for partially closed businesses. So if you remember, I mentioned that the vet that was closed, where the shop is closed, but the surgery side of the vet is still working, you can claim for the partially closed employees for the TERS benefit.
We must just be careful, though, that there's actually an operation within the business that's closing. If it isn't closing, then it's a little ambiguous.
Yeah, but remember, if you close due to COVID TERS, you can claim for the benefit.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. If we do pay employees this loan while they are waiting for UIF payment, what amount is advised? 3,500, as this is the minimum to be received. This is your choice as a company. You can choose what you want to pay your employees until they receive UIF benefits. There's no specific mention in the Act of what you should pay, but I would say using the minimum wage is a good
I think this question is maybe related to what the company can anticipate in payment from the UIF in order to give that same payment to the employee.
Yeah,
so I guess 3,500 would be the minimum. It would definitely be the minimum.
Yes. This is all for SA, but how does this affect Namibia? Well, Namibia has their own COVID rules. So you'll see from what we've received from Namibia is that Namibia only changed their submission deadlines and their penalties. We did send out a news flash on Namibia. If you want, you can send me your email address and I will forward you that email anonymous. I will forward you the Namibia tax alert, but you can also find the tax alerts in the system itself. Crystal, where do they find those tax alerts?
It's on the What's New section portal, but I think yesterday we also, just to make everyone aware, there was a change regarding Social Security.
In Namibia, yes.
Correct. So there will be another tax alert sent out today describing those changes that happen on the payroll.
Yes. If we do pay employees this loan while they are waiting for UIF payment, what would I read that question already, sorry. For the TERS process, is the suspension of employees code 17 applicable? Okay, suspension of employees, it depends on which option you choose. So illness is code 10 and reduced working hours is code 17. So yes, it is applicable. We recorded all the employees' bank details on the Excel file, but chose that funds be paid to employer, assuming that employer bank details would be noted as per registration. Will this be incorrect? It depends on the UIF's application procedure, so I would definitely suggest to phone them and clarify this with them. I can't speculate on what they would do based on their file information. I can just tell you what I know should be in the file. So I suggest that you phone them directly. Please confirm commission earners do not contribute to UIF. If the business closed completely, can they claim for TERS? I think if you have a look at what the qualifying employer criteria and employee criteria is, I would say no, they will not be able to claim TERS benefits because they did not contribute to UIF if they are commission earners only. But you are welcome to phone them and confirm this with them. Will you issue a CPD certificate for attendance? Chantal?
The CPD attendance requires 4 hours of training, and the session is only scheduled for an hour and a half. So unfortunately, we can't issue CPD unstructured points for this session.
Thank you. Please clarify again when leave pay is paid out. Is this deducted from the TERS benefit? If you declare this leave pay as remuneration received during the lockdown period, yes, it would. In the file itself. Is it better to prepare payroll for April after one has received money from UIF? How will you show this amount paid to employee on the payslip that the employer received from UIF department? Like I said previously, this would qualify as 7th schedule remuneration and would not be subject to any deductions of pay as you earn SDL UIF. Therefore, you can just pay it out on the payslip for reconciliation purposes and use the IRP5 code 9999, 4 nines. As per TERS email, employees' bank account details is a mandatory requirement in the employee details template. If the funds must be paid to employer, whose banking details must display on the employee information sheet next to each employee? If you choose that the employer should be paid, then it should be the employer banking details. If you choose the bargaining council, it should be the bargaining council details. And if you choose employee, it's going to populate the employee banking details. So you'll see in the file selection from PaySpace, you can choose one of those 3. And depending on which one you've chosen, that's what we will populate on the file.
So I think this question has come up pretty often, actually, and maybe our previous answer above, there was another question around, if an employee doesn't have banking details, what do we insert in the row? And I think our answer was a little ambiguous there because it is actually the employer's banking details that you will have in that person's details because the employer is getting paid.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the right direction when it comes to this.
Can domestic employers apply for benefits and will it be TERS or UIF? I would say they should claim the normal UIF benefits, but you as an employer can claim this as a TERS process as well. So you have the prerogative to claim both processes. It's basically your choice, Jacqueline. One of our staff members are going on maternity end of April and they claim from UIF. How do we go about this in terms of our TERS claim then? Well, she's only going on maternity leave end of April, and end of April is when this shutdown period stops. So if you still pay her during the course of the shutdown, you can still claim for her in the TERS process, but thereafter she will apply for the maternity leave benefits. Can you clarify what TERS benefit will pay out after the company has paid as well? I.e., how do they calculate TERS with a portion paid by the company. What we've read from the Gazette is they will pay you the difference between what the company is paying the employee versus what they calculate to pay the employee. But this is what we know. You're welcome to phone them and clarify that as well. Okay. Once the TERS amounts have been paid to the employer and the company has to pay it to the employee, how will it be reflecting on the payslip? Question answered. You will reflect it against RP5 code 9999. It does not. You will not calculate PAYSU and STL or UIF on it because it's seen as 7th schedule remuneration. When I try to load a new file online for employees for the period 17 to 30 April already applied for in the initial period, it says the employee has already been registered. How do you apply for an extended period online? This you'll have to confirm with the UIF department. We are not sure there. This is their process, so the best would be to get that detail from them. You can phone them on 012 337 1997. Is it better to prepare the payroll for April after the employer has received the money from the UIF department? How do we show the amount? How do we show the amount per person on the April payslip after knowing how much money that person will receive? You will display that against RP5 code 9999, which will not you will not calculate PAYSU, earn, UIF and STL on this money. Okay, guys, I'm going to answer the last 3 questions and then we will send out any further correspondence to you during the course of next week. Okay, what if the loan given by the employer is greater than the amount paid out by TERS? What is the best way to deal with this in payroll? Remember, as you are applying for this process because you require assistance during the lockdown period. You don't know what the UIF is going to pay out. So if you pay them more, it's a benefit for the employee. So if we make an advance payment of minimum wage 3,500 to employees while waiting for TERS UIF funds.
Well, remember, it's not actually a payment, it's a loan. The employee needs to pay it back. So it becomes a debt on the employee side. So in essence, anticipating a payment from TERS, it's similar to the question you answered before, Corne, that the minimum would be 3,500.
Yes.
Now, if the loan, obviously between the company and the employee, if the loan agreement or the loan amount is more than that, that's definitely up to the company.
Yes. And to answer the other questions that came in, any money that you receive from UIF of this payment is seen as 7th schedule remuneration. Therefore, any money that you pay based on what you've received from UIF will be displayed under code 9999. Okay, do you still want me to answer these last 3 questions, George? Or are we done for the day and we will send all the questions and answers on next week's correspondence?
I think let's conclude, Corne. We can always send, the answers to these questions on the correspondence. I think it will also aid people to refer back to, some of the questions that were dealt with. I would just like to thank all the attendees on behalf of PaySpace, for joining us this morning. I hope it brought you value. And as I mentioned before, there's various facets to what we are basically busy with in terms of chatting to advisors, compiling feedback to you guys, deploying functionality on the system. So we're definitely on top of a best of service output when it comes to what you can expect from a legislative perspective. So I think just to reiterate as well, this is a process that is it's a moving process, and we'll keep tabs on how this process moves, and we'll keep you alerted throughout what takes place. So thank you for your time, guys, and all the best, and please reach out if you need anything. Thank you.